Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of Our Life Really Isn't All That Exciting. So I just was thinking about something. You know, neither my wife nor myself had, easy time growing up, I guess you could say. My life up till I was 8 years old wasn't too bad. But, anyway, when I was in the institutions, looking back on things, maybe I could have studied so I could spell correctly and do math and all that, but I don't know where I would have obtained the study materials to study with. In the institutions, I was more concerned about surviving the day. And if I could survive that day, then hopefully I could survive that night, and it went second by second. Now, there was one institution I was in, the last one I was in, it got to the point where I just said, this is all ridiculous. This is all nonsense. I mean, you have rules that the staff don't even follow their own rules. The rules are enforced at random, it seemed. It depends on who you were also. And because of the violence, the physical violence, the sexual violence, the verbal abuse, it got to the point where I just spent as much time in the woods as I could. And I got away with it, but I also wasn't able to go into town to see the movies or go to the mall, or if you want to call them what they had in Victoria, Texas, a mall back then. But hey, I spent my time in the woods, so I was free. Now, from what I see on Google Satellite, those woods aren't there anymore. At least a lot of the woods aren't there anymore. I wonder about the bodies they probably buried out there. If anyone will ever find those, and what will happen? Probably nothing will happen once they find them. Or they might go ahead and dig up the bodies and move them somewhere else. But, it's easy to look back on life and say, well, I wish I would have done this or that or whatever, but, I did what I did, you did what you did, she did what she did, everybody did what they did, so you can't change what happened. And by the way, it's 19 degrees Fahrenheit right now. But, it would have been nice if I would have been in a position to study instead of having to worry about what was going to happen next. Maybe I shouldn't have worried what was going to happen next, because whatever was going to happen was going to happen. You don't have any control over what other people say or do. You only have control over yourself. But those institutions are still around. Not all of the ones I was in are still around, but those types of institutions are still around. People don't seem to spend as much time in them as they used to. I mean, I spent 3 years in one place, the last place I was in. I spent a year, and I went home, and then I got sent back for 2 years. It's like an introduction to the next step, which is prison. I don't really want to say I was ever in juvie hall, because I was in juvie hall twice, and it was the first time, I guess it was the first time, or one of the times. The one in Harris County, I was only in there for a few hours. The other one was in San Antonio, and I was in there all day, probably at least 12 hours. But, I looked around. What was the difference between juvie hall and those places? They had a lot of the same kind of people, same kind of staff, same kind of kids. Next step was jail or prison for a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, I would actually like to get in touch with quite a few of the people that I knew in these institutions, because there were some good kids. I didn't have the books to use to, like I said, I spent time in the woods, but, I didn't have textbooks, spelling books, reading books, math books that I could have used. I didn't have much in the way of pen and paper that I could have used. So I was out there in the woods having a good time, actually. I enjoyed the woods. I still do. Feel safe. Up here we have bear and moose. I don't think you have to worry about too much about the moose, but the bear, like, oh well, they're bear, so what? It's like in Texas, you have snakes. So what? You deal with it. I lived on Okinawa for 5 years. You want to talk about snakes? That island's covered with them, and you just don't aggravate a snake, and it's not going to bother you. And a bear, you don't aggravate a bear, and it's probably not going to bother you. Where I go out and shoot target practice, it's a not often used road. Most vehicles couldn't even get down it, and just getting to the road is a chore. You have to be very careful. And once you get on the road, you can't move but like 3 miles an hour, if that. I've seen deer down there, but haven't seen any bear or any signs of bears down there. But anyway, yeah, it would have been nice, because then I could spell. I could write a proper sentence and a proper paragraph, and I could do math properly, but those institutions were not there to help us. They were there to make money off of us. And when you hire staff that are nothing but a bunch of losers, a bunch of punks, a bunch of gangbanger wannabes and gangbanger types, but I survived, and now I thrive. So I guess that's all I really have to say.